You're not welcome here anymore, Harold. Not in this house. Not in our lives. That's what my daughter told me while her husband watched with folded arms and smug eyes. And just like that, I was out. No warning. No goodbye hug. Just silence and a locked door behind me. My name is Harold Greene. I'm 79 years old. I've built two things in my life with my bare hands, the house on Canyonridge Road and my daughter, Elise. I remember laying every brick of that porch 37 years ago. The July heat was cruel back then, just like it was the day she kicked me off that very same porch. The sun burned hotter than usual. It dried the sweat right into your shirt and stuck it there like salt on old denim. I stood on the concrete walk, staring at the welcome mat I bought for them last Christmas, the one that said, "Family is everything." Funny, I bought it, but I wasn't part of the family anymore. Not since Elise married Darren. Darren Bloom, tall, polished, and hollow as a rusted pipe. A man who could smile at you while measuring your worth down to the decimal point. I knew from the moment I shook his hand that he was trouble. Too smooth. Too rehearsed. He talked like a man who'd only read about struggle in a book and thought himself an expert. I tried. Lord knows I tried. I kept my mouth shut at the wedding. I wore the uncomfortable suit. I gave them my late wife's diamond bracelet as a gift. Elise cried when she opened it. Darren didn't. He just calculated what it was worth. They moved me into the guest room 3 years ago after my knees gave out and my pension checks started shrinking like laundry in hot water. "It's just temporary," Dad, Elise said. "We want you here," she said. But Darren never wanted me there. I could feel it. His silence during dinner. His way of correcting Elise in front of me. The way he called me sir, like it tasted bitter. He never raised his voice, no, that would have been too honest. He just pushed. Quietly. Every day. Like water against rock. Until the day came when the rock cracked. That morning, I made pancakes for my grandson Oliver. He's 6. Has my smile and Elise's sharp eyes. He wanted extra blueberries. I gave him double. Elise was out running errands. Darren walked in, took one look at the syrup bottle on the table and said, "Maybe we should cut back on sugar, Harold. You're setting a bad example." I looked him in the eye and replied, "Maybe you should cut back on speaking when nobody asked you to." Oliver laughed. Darren didn't. That afternoon, Elise came home cold as glass. She didn't look at me once during lunch. At 3:15, they called me into the living room like I was being summoned to a principal's office. Elise was sitting stiff on the couch. Darren stood behind her like a vulture guarding a meal he hadn't killed. She didn't waste time. "Dad, we think it's best if you find another place to live." I blinked. "Come again." Darren cleared his throat. "We feel it's no longer working, having you here. For Oliver's sake." "Elise?" I turned to her. She didn't meet my eyes. Just looked at her fingernails. "I think it's for the best, Dad. For the best." My voice cracked. "You said I could live here as long as I needed. You said that was before," she paused. "Before it became uncomfortable." I laughed, but it came out bitter. "Uncomfortable? You think that's new to me? I've been uncomfortable since I buried your mother and moved into that damn room." Darren stepped forward. "You've got 2 weeks. We've already contacted a local retirement home. They have space." I stared at him, feeling my jaw lock. "You made that decision without me." "It's not your decision," he said. "It's our home. Our family." And then came the hammer. "There's no room for you here, Harold." I packed that night. I didn't speak. Neither did Elise. She helped carry a box to the car, only one. When I turned to her, my heart sunk. I didn't see my little girl anymore. Just a stranger with my daughter's eyes. "You remember who paid the down payment for this house?" I asked her. She flinched. Just for a second. "You did. And who paid for your college? Who watched Oliver every night you wanted to go to your Pilates class?" She stayed quiet. I sighed. "I should have let you marry the boy from the gas station." That got her attention. She looked up furious. "Don't you dare." I shook my head. "Don't worry. You've made your bed. Just make sure you're still proud of it when it collapses." Then I left. I moved into a 1-bedroom unit at Maple Grove Assisted Living the next day. Smelled like medicine and reheated chicken. They gave me a cot and a chip dresser. The view was of a parking lot. Some days I saw Elise's SUV pass by on her way to work. She never stopped. But I didn't sit and rot. I watched. I remembered. I made notes. And slowly, I started to build a different kind of plan. Because what Darren didn't know, what Elise had forgotten, was that I was still the man who built a house from nothing. And I could still tear one down too. They forgot I still had hands. Calloused, crooked, old, but steady. They forgot these hands built roofs, rewired breaker boxes, installed toilets in winter with nothing but a wrench and grit. They forgot that old doesn't mean done. I sat on that thin mattress at Maple Grove and wrote in my notebook. Every day after breakfast, I filled a page. Not stories, not regrets, just facts, dates, names, documents. I had nothing but time. Time to remember what they took. Time to remember what I still had. Let me tell you a secret. The deed to the house on Canyonridge Road? It was never fully in Elise's name. Back when Lorraine, my wife, was still alive, we bought that place together. 50-50. When she passed, I kept paying the taxes. Quietly. Diligently. Even after Elise and Darren moved in and started making it their house, I kept sending in payments. In full. Every year. Because I knew people like Darren. And I knew that paper beats promises. I called the county clerk's office and asked to verify the deed. Sure, mister. Greene, the woman on the line said. We have your name listed as co-owner. No changes filed since 2006. That was 20 years ago. Elise never even asked. When they told me to leave, they thought they were evicting a guest. They didn't realize they were kicking out a landlord. I smiled for the first time in days. A small one. Tight-lipped. Satisfying. At Maple Grove, I kept to myself. The place had its own rhythm, slow breakfasts, soft music, occasional bingo. I didn't care for the games, but I listened. And that's how I met Frances. She used to be a real estate paralegal. Sharp mind. No nonsense. Wore cardigans that smelled like cinnamon. She played checkers like she was negotiating a ceasefire. We were sitting by the vending machine one afternoon when she noticed my notebook. You plotting something? She asked. Just writing down what they think I forgot. She laughed, then leaned in. Who's they? My daughter. Her husband. They threw me out of a house I still partly own. Frances arched an eyebrow. You have paperwork? I have enough to make someone sweat. She nodded. You want help making them sweat harder? We spent the next week going over everything. I showed her copies of tax records, utility bills still in my name, bank statements showing payments. I even had the original loan documents Lorraine and I signed in '86. Frances went quiet for a long time. Then she looked up at me and said, Harold, if they refinanced or sold that house without your signature, they're in for a world of legal trouble. My heart thumped. What do you mean? I mean, if your name is on that deed and they did anything major without your written consent, that's fraud. I looked at her, a real, slow realization washing over me. Then they're not just selfish, I said. They're stupid. The next call I made was to my old friend, Walter Ford. He ran a local contracting business back in the day. We built half the town's patios together. Now he was semi-retired, teaching woodshop to troubled teens in a community center. Walter, I said, you still got friends at the building permit office? For you, Harold, I got friends in every damn corner of this city. I explained the situation. Next day, he called me back. They did a kitchen remodel last year, he said. Opened a wall, installed new fixtures. Permit application lists Darren Bloom as the homeowner. And me? You're not listed. Not once. I let out a breath. That was it. That was the thread. And I was going to pull it. There's something else Darren forgot. When you build a man like me, the kind that works through heat stroke and arthritis, the kind that tapes his boots when they fall apart but still shows up on time, you build someone who doesn't stop. You push that man down, he doesn't break. He sharpens. He plans. I made one more call. To a lawyer. Not a fancy one. Just an honest one. And I asked him a question. If a man's name is still on the deed, and the other residents remodeled, refinanced, and removed him without consent, there was a pause. A paper shuffle. Can he take back the house? The answer? Yes. And now I wasn't just going to fight back. I was going to take everything they thought they'd won, piece by piece, wall by wall. It started with a letter. Nothing dramatic. Just a plain envelope, white as snow, no markings. Inside, a formal notice, neatly typed, carefully worded, signed by a man named Mark Delaney, attorney at law. Addressed to Mr. Darren Bloom and Mrs. Elise Bloom, Canyonridge Road residents, subject line. Notice of legal interest and cease and desist regarding property modifications and occupancy. It wasn't a threat. It was a fact. Francis helped me write the first draft. Mark refined it into something cold, clinical, and impossible to ignore. It stated plainly that I, Harold Greene, remain a legal co-owner of the property at Canyonridge Road, that no alterations, renovations, refinancing, or rental agreements could be lawfully made without my explicit written consent, that I had been illegally removed from the property without due process or notice, and that any ongoing use of the home without my agreement constituted unauthorized occupancy. It ended with a deadline, 10 business days to respond and begin negotiations, or legal action would proceed. I had it delivered via courier, not regular mail. I wanted Darren to sign for it. I wanted Elise to feel the tension rise behind her filtered Instagram photos and HOA meeting smiles. Francis was the one who said it best. You want to make them uncomfortable before you make them pay. And oh, they got uncomfortable. Day 3 after the letter arrived, Mark got a call from Darren. Aggressive, arrogant, defensive. Harold has no right to that house. He's old. He doesn't even live there anymore. Mark was calm, unbothered. Your feelings aren't law, Mr. Bloom. His name is on the deed. That means he owns it. You've got 10 days. Darren hung up and didn't call back. Day 6, Elise tried. Can't we just talk this out as a family? She said in a trembling voice that probably worked on PTA moms and online sympathy groups. Mark replied, of course, in writing, through counsel. By day 10, they hadn't formally responded. So we escalated. We filed a quiet title action. For those unfamiliar, it's a legal move to formally establish or challenge ownership of real estate, a way to resolve disputes and clarify who truly holds title. And I had everything: tax records, witness statements, deed history, the permit violations, even photos of me working on the backyard years ago, elbow deep in dirt, a shovel in one hand, and my grandson sitting in a lawn chair nearby with lemonade. All of it was included. It wasn't just about taking back what was mine. It was about leaving them no room to run. Francis said something I'll never forget the night we filed. You know what's funny, Harold? They thought putting you in here meant you were finished. But this place gave you time. Time is dangerous when it's in the hands of someone with memory. She was right. I wasn't just remembering. I was documenting every call, every threat, every word, including the voicemail Darren left 2 nights later. You're insane, old man. You're trying to destroy your own daughter's life for what? Pride? Some dusty little piece of paper? Go ahead. You'll die before it goes to court. He didn't realize I saved that voicemail, or that it would be played back in front of a judge. There was one more move I made, though. A quiet one. I didn't just want to reclaim the house. I wanted to make sure they couldn't use it as leverage anymore. So I requested a temporary injunction. That's legal speak for a court order to freeze any actions on the property. No selling, no renting, no construction, no destruction. When the judge approved it, a quiet signature at the bottom of a 3-page order. That was the first time Elise called me directly since the day she threw me out. Dad, what are you doing? She said. I was silent for a moment. Then I said, taking back my seat at the table, "You're ruining our lives." "No," I replied. "I'm just reminding you that mine still matters." Her voice cracked, just a little. Are you really going to make this public?" I didn't answer right away. I just looked out the window at the fading light, a soft orange glow sinking behind the Maple Grove parking lot. "Elise, you made it public the day you put my suitcase on the porch." She didn't speak after that, just breathing. Then a click. Call ended. That night I sat with Francis in the activity room. We didn't say much, just listened to an old jazz record spinning on the turntable. Then she looked over at me and smiled. You got that look again. What look? The one that says you're not done yet. I smiled back, because I wasn't. It didn't look like a battlefield, just a county courthouse. Beige walls, flickering lights, rows of hard-backed benches that made your spine ache within minutes. A stale smell of floor polish and overripe paper. The bailiff nodded to me as I entered. He looked barely 30. I wondered if he saw me as just another sad old man trying to cling to something that slipped away. Frances came with me, not as a witness, just as strength. She sat 2 rows behind me, close enough to be felt, far enough to stay out of the storm. I had asked Mark not to make this a spectacle. He smiled. You don't need to make it a spectacle, Harold. The facts will do that for you. That morning, Elise and Darren walked in like they were going to a job interview. Matching navy suits, tight smiles, and eyes that darted around the room like they were expecting cameras. There were no cameras. Not yet. The judge, a middle-aged woman named Meredith Tolland, entered precisely at 9 a.m. sharp as her gavel. Her reputation was simple. She didn't like lies, she didn't like games, and she didn't like people wasting her time. Perfect. Mark opened with clarity. Your Honor, we are here because my client, Mr. Harold Greene, was unlawfully removed from his own residence by the very people he trusted most. This is not just a property case. It is a question of dignity, deception, and whether the law protects those who built something with their bare hands. He laid out the case like a storybook, and what a story it was. Harold co-signed the deed. Harold paid the taxes. Harold funded most of the renovations after Elise and Darren moved in. Harold was never compensated, never signed away a share, never agreed to be removed. And then, one day, his key stopped working. Then came the twist. Mark pulled out a printed screenshot, Darren's real estate listing, dated just 2 months earlier. A single-family home ready for new memories, the ad said. Photos of the living room, the kitchen I helped remodel, the yard I built stone by stone. The asking price, just under $1.2 million. The listing had been taken down the moment the legal notice was sent, but it was too late. The internet never forgets. The judge raised her eyebrows. You attempted to sell the property, Mr. Bloom? Darren stammered. It was just exploratory. Did you have Mr. Greene's written consent? No, but he wasn't living there anymore. Not the question. No, Elise squirmed. Her lawyer whispered something into her ear, but she kept her eyes locked on me. Next came my turn to speak. Mark asked only one question. Mr. Greene, why are you here today? I took a moment before answering. Not for effect. Just to breathe. I'm here because I built a home. Not just walls and floors. A home. I paid for it, I maintained it, I sacrificed years of my life to keep it standing. And then, one day, my own daughter told me I was inconvenient. They didn't take my name off the deed. They just took my presence out of their life. I looked at the judge. Your Honor, this isn't about revenge. This is about principle. They didn't just try to erase me from the house. They tried to erase me from the family. Silence followed. That heavy kind of silence that means something has landed. Then it was their lawyer's turn. He was good. Slick. He painted me as sentimental. Said I'd voluntarily moved out. Said I had no proof of being removed by force. That I'd left because I couldn't handle modern living conditions. That Elise and Darren had simply continued their life, assuming I had stepped away willingly. Then he made a mistake. He suggested I had memory issues. Mr. Greene is of advanced age, he said. And while we deeply respect his contributions to the family, it is possible that time has altered his recollection. Mark stood up without hesitation. Your Honor, if Mr. Greene's memory is in question, perhaps we should admit into evidence the audio recordings. The lawyer froze. The what? We have several voicemails from Mr. Darren Bloom threatening Mr. Greene with removal. We also have witness testimony from a neighbor who saw Mr. Greene standing outside the house with his belongings, visibly distressed. And then he added the line that turned the judge's mouth into a tight slash. Shall I play them now, Your Honor? She nodded. Mark pressed play. The room filled with Darren's voice. Sharp, angry, triumphant. I changed the locks. Deal with it, old man. Elise's voice was next. Quieter, but cold. You don't belong here anymore. This is our house now. The judge didn't need anything else. By the time the hearing ended, it was clear where this was heading. The judge declared a temporary injunction effective immediately. Darren and Elise were barred from selling, refinancing, or altering the property in any way until the full case was resolved. All financial records related to the house would be submitted within 5 business days. And a forensic accountant was appointed by the court to determine all contributions made to the property, including past payments, renovations, and investments, by all parties. As we left the courtroom, Darren brushed past me, furious. "You think this makes you a hero? You think anyone cares?" I didn't even turn toward him. I just said quietly, "They don't have to care. The law does." Frances was waiting for me on the bench in the hallway. She stood and hooked her arm into mine. "You walk a little taller today, Harold." I smiled. Funny how justice fixes your posture. A week after the hearing, the mailbox outside Frances's house overflowed with envelopes. Most were junk. One wasn't. It came from a law firm with a name longer than a funeral procession. I recognized the return address from Darren's legal documents. Inside, a revised settlement offer. The letter, drafted in sterile legal language, was simple. They were offering me $200,000 to walk away from the property. No further court. No additional claims. Just sign, accept the money, and vanish from their lives. I stared at the page for a long time. 200,000. After everything. Frances read it over my shoulder. "They're desperate." "No," I said. "They're afraid." Because what the judge ordered at the hearing wasn't just a delay. It was a signal. She believed something wasn't right. And now their carefully built house of appearances, the family image, the financial front, the quiet eviction, was unraveling. One clause at a time. I didn't respond to the offer. I let the silence say everything. 3 days later, Darren called me. I didn't pick up. He called again the next morning. Left a voicemail. "You win, Dad. You want the house? Fine. Take it. You want to humiliate us in court? Go ahead. Just know you're breaking your own daughter." That part made me pause. Not because of guilt, but because of how quickly they shifted from power to pity. They'd been holding the sword for months. Now they were pretending I'd pulled it from its sheath. Frances shook her head when she heard the message. "They still don't get it. You're not out for blood. You're out for your name." Exactly. The forensic accountant the court appointed was named Elliot Worth. A compact man in his 60s with silver glasses and no time for small talk. He asked for every receipt I had, and thankfully, I had most of them. Not because I'm some paperwork savant. Because when you've lived poor most of your life, you keep proof. Every repair bill, every upgrade, every deposit slip. You don't trust memory when memory doesn't pay rent. Frances helped me sort through the folders. Worth went to work. 2 weeks later, we met again in the courthouse annex, a small, glass-walled room that smelled like cold coffee and judgment. Darren and Elise were already there. He didn't look at me. She did once. Her expression unreadable. Worth laid the report on the table like a detonator. He began reading aloud. Over the course of 18 years, Harold Greene contributed 72% of all documented financial inputs into the property. 72%. That was the number that cracked the floor under Darren's smug composure. His jaw clenched. Elise's face turned pale. But Worth wasn't done. All mortgage payments before 2013 came solely from Mr. Greene's account. Renovations in 2017, 2020, and 2022, totaling $84,000, were also paid in full by Mr. Greene. No reimbursements were documented. He slid the full summary across the table. Conclusion: Mr. Greene is, by all documented evidence, the primary financial contributor to the property and retains legal interest equivalent to his documented input. The judge called it a game changer. I called it justice with a calculator. That night, I sat with Frances in her living room. She poured 2 glasses of iced tea and asked the question I had been avoiding. "What will you do if you win everything?" I looked at her. Really looked. Past the polite smile and the kindness. Into the soft ache of someone who had also lost things along the way. "I don't want everything," I said. "I want peace. And my name where it belongs. And if they beg forgiveness? I'll listen, but I won't forget. She nodded. Good. The next day, the newspaper called. Some intern reporter from the local Chronicle had caught wind of the court case. Maybe it was a leak, maybe it was courthouse gossip, but the headline was already being written in someone's mind. The story of an old man being ousted by his own blood always sells. I declined an interview. For now, because I knew what was coming. Once people learn there's a fight over money, over property, over family betrayal, they form opinions fast. And once that kind of storm breaks, you either brace for impact, or you learn how to ride lightning. It started on a Thursday morning. The local paper hit the stands with a photo of my house, my former house, plastered across the top fold. Elderly man evicted by daughter and son-in-law, property ownership challenged in court. They didn't use our names directly in the headline, but the article inside left no doubt. The reporter had done her homework. Dates, court filings, property records, witness testimony, it was all there. The photo caption even quoted Worth's financial analysis, 72% of documented expenses traced to Mr. Greene, not the current occupants. By noon, the article was online. By 3 o'clock, it had been shared over 12,000 times. The comments section exploded. People had opinions. Most weren't kind to Darren or Elise. I got a phone call from Pastor Ray, an old friend from church. Harold, I just read the paper. Please tell me this isn't real. It's real, I said quietly. You need anything? Money? A place to stay? No, I replied. What I need is for people to know the truth. By evening, the story had been picked up by a regional station. A camera crew parked outside Frances's house. She threatened to call the police unless they backed off. They did, but only after asking if I'd agree to an interview. I didn't say yes, but I didn't say no either. That night, Darren called. This time I answered. You had to go to the media? I didn't. Then who did? Maybe people who are tired of watching you pretend you're the victim. He breathed heavily into the phone. Do you know what you've done? Elise had to call off 2 contracts. No one wants to work with us now. Our neighbors are whispering. My firm put me on leave. There was a pause. Is this revenge, Dad? No, son. This is consequence. The court date was 2 weeks away. The house had become a symbol. Neighbors drove slower down the street, trying to catch a glimpse of the couple who'd kicked out an old man. Strangers began leaving handwritten letters at Frances's porch for me. Some shared their own stories of being mistreated by family. Others just said, "Fight. We're with you." I started keeping the letters in a box under the bed, not out of pride, out of responsibility, because when people believe in your cause, you don't back down. Elise tried next. She called from a number I didn't recognize. Her voice was softer than usual, measured. Mr. Greene, may I speak plainly? You may. I know you're hurt, and I know Darren's made mistakes. But dragging this out helps no one. Dragging this out? Elise, you're living in a house I paid for. Telling people I abandoned you. Do you think silence is still an option? You're destroying your daughter's life. No, I said. I'm giving her a chance to rebuild it the right way. She was quiet. Then, with less steel in her voice than I'd ever heard, I misjudged you. We both did. You judged me based on what I couldn't give you. Now the world's judging you based on what you took. Before she could reply, I ended the call. That night, Frances brought me a small envelope. Someone had left it in her mailbox with no name. Inside was a photo, an old one. Me, holding Claire at age 3, in front of the porch I built with my own hands. The same porch I was now legally fighting for. Scrawled on the back in pen, "You are always more than enough." I just didn't see it. No signature. But I knew the handwriting. The courtroom was quiet that morning. Too quiet. No cameras. No reporters. Just the thick, tense silence of 2 families pretending this was just another legal matter. On one side, me, Harold Greene, 78 years old, wearing the same suit I'd worn to my wife's funeral. On the other, my daughter Claire, sitting next to her husband Darren, both flanked by a sleek team of lawyers in fitted suits and hollow expressions. The judge, a woman in her early 60s with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense tone, shuffled through the paperwork like she'd already decided the outcome. But you could tell she didn't enjoy this case. No one did. It stank of betrayal. Worth, my attorney, stood first. Your Honor, this is a case about truth. About who really paid for that house. We're not just talking receipts and signatures, though we have plenty of those. We're talking about a man who gave up his retirement, took on loans in his late 60s, and sacrificed the last years of his life to provide for the very people who now deny he ever mattered. He walked slowly across the courtroom, placing copies of bank transfers, property taxes, and construction bills on the clerk's desk. Over 90% of all financial activity tied to the property came from Mr. Greene's accounts. Not loans, not co-signatures, payments, direct, consistent, traceable. He looked the judge in the eye. He didn't write his name on the deed because he trusted his daughter, because he believed that family meant something. That trust has now been weaponized against him. Claire didn't look up. Darren crossed his arms. When it was the defense's turn, their attorney rose, buttoned his jacket, and began with a smirk. Your Honor, no one disputes that Mr. Greene was generous, that he supported his family. But generosity doesn't equal ownership. He gestured toward me. This is a case of sentimental confusion. A father who gave willingly and now regrets it. But regret does not undo legal documents. Then he delivered the line they thought would win them the case. If Mr. Greene wanted protection, he should have put his name on the title. He didn't. And the law does not operate on feelings. The judge nodded slowly, then turned to me. Mr. Greene, I'd like to hear from you directly. Just a few words. I stood. My knees cracked. I didn't prepare a speech. I didn't need one. I raised my daughter to be strong, to be kind. I taught her how to hammer a nail, how to change a tire, how to never lie to someone who loves you. I worked until my back gave out, until my wife passed, until the only home I knew had 4 walls and no warmth left in it. I looked at Claire. I didn't sign my name on the deed because I never thought I had to. I signed my love into that house, every board, every pipe, every meal cooked in that kitchen. My hands shook slightly. But if the law says I don't belong there, then so be it. I just wanted the world to see what happens when love is repaid with cruelty. And I think they have. I sat down. The judge took a breath. She didn't roll that day. Said she needed time to review the evidence, that the emotional weight of the case didn't change the legal complexities. But 2 days later, the decision came. A letter from the court. A ruling. Partial transfer of ownership granted. The judge acknowledged that while the title was legally in Claire's name, the financial evidence, witness testimony, and even Claire's own handwritten notes confirmed I had provided the overwhelming majority of the funding. I was awarded 75% ownership of the home. Claire and Darren were given 60 days to vacate, unless they wished to negotiate a buyout at market rate. I sat on Frances's couch with the letter in my hand, reading it twice, 3 times. Then I smiled, not because I wanted revenge, because I'd reclaimed something far more valuable, my place, my name, my worth. I didn't expect Claire to come back, not after the ruling, not after the eviction notice, not after everything that had been said, done, and revealed under oath. But life has a funny way of testing how much forgiveness a man's heart can hold, even when it's already full of scars. It was the first Sunday morning of April. Sunlight poured through my front windows, hitting the freshly polished floor I'd paid for twice in my lifetime. The house smelled like coffee and lemon oil. I was just finishing a letter to Frances, telling her how much I appreciated everything she'd done for me, when I heard a car pull up. Then a knock. Soft. Hesitant. I opened the door. Claire was standing there. No makeup. No polished smile. Just a woman holding something invisible in her hands, maybe pride, maybe shame. Dad, she said quietly. I waited. I wanted to see the house one last time. I looked at her. You saw it plenty when I was scrubbing the floors and sanding the drywall. I know, she said, voice breaking. I was wrong. You were cruel. She nodded. I know that too. I let her in. We didn't speak as she walked through the rooms. Her fingers brushed the walls I'd painted. She paused at the photo of Mom on the hallway shelf. When she returned to the kitchen, She looked different. Smaller. Tired. Darren left, she said finally. Said I wasn't worth the trouble now that the house is gone. I said nothing. I've been staying at a friend's. Looking for work. I lost a lot more than I thought I would. You didn't lose it, I said. You gave it away. She looked down. You're right. Then she reached into her purse and pulled out a small velvet box. I was going to sell it, she said, placing it on the table. But I couldn't. Not after everything. I opened it. My wedding ring. The one I'd given to her mother 53 years ago. She must have taken it from Mom's jewelry box after the funeral, back when I was too numb to care about heirlooms. I closed the box gently and nodded. I didn't come to ask for anything, she said. I just needed to say I'm sorry. Truly sorry. There was a long pause. Do you think we'll ever be okay again? She asked, her voice trembling. I looked out the window at the garden, at the roses I'd planted after the verdict, new life, growing from old soil. I don't know, I said honestly. Some things take longer to rebuild than houses. She stood. I understand. As she walked to the door, I said, Claire. She turned. I hope one day you become the kind of woman your mother would be proud of. She nodded, tears rolling down her cheeks, and left without another word. That was the last time I saw her. 3 years have passed since then. I'm 81 now. I spend my mornings in the garden, my afternoons reading on the porch. Sometimes Francis visits. Sometimes Marcel brings a pie. And sometimes I think about Claire. I wonder if she ever found peace. If she ever stopped chasing something bigger than love. But I don't dwell on it. Because I've learned something, some people come back changed. Others come back just long enough to close the door behind them. And that's okay. I have my house, my name, my quiet, my dignity. And at this age, that's more than enough. If you're still listening, thank you for walking this journey with me. And if you've ever felt like someone erased your worth, remember this. You don't need to shout to be heard. You don't need revenge to reclaim your power. Sometimes, all it takes is standing tall when others expect you to fall. This was Harold Greene. Thanks for listening.